As you come to the first video of the Commonwealth welterweight title history, 147 pounds or 10 stone 7, and we start in 1913. So 1913, you have Johnny Summers. Johnny Summers, 1913 there, and from England he wins on points over 20 rounds against Sid Burns from England, also in Sydney, Australia. Then we got October 11th. October 11th, 1913. Johnny Summers from England wins on points again over 20 rounds against Arthur Effenden from England. Lovely. And we got 1914, starting of the First World War that year. January the 10th, 1914, Tom McCormick from England wins on points over 20 rounds against Johnny Summers from England in Sydney, Australia. Then we got February the 14th, 1914. Tom McCormick from England wins by KO in the first round against Johnny Summers from England in Sydney, Australia. And March the 21st, 1914, Matt Wells from England wins on points over 20 rounds against Tom McCormick from England in Sydney, Australia. And then you've got 1919, the end of the First World War. Well, no, it's 1918 actually, but this is after, the year after. So, November the 13th, 1919, Johnny Basham from Wales wins on points over 20 rounds against Matt Wells from England in London, England. And then you've got April the 12th, 1920, Johnny Basham from Wales wins on points over Fred Kay from Australia and London, England. And then we got June the 9th, 1920, Ted Kid Lewis from England wins by KO in 9th round against Johnny Basham from Wales in London, England. Then we got November the 26th, 1924. Tommy Milligan from Scotland wins on points over 20 rounds against Ted Kid Lewis from England in Edinburgh. I think it was 3 times world champion, Ted Kid Lewis at this weight. So we got 1951, the year Sugar Ray Robinson had 11 fights in that year, reversing the Dick Turpin fight 60 days later. He fought Dick Turpin July the 10th that year, and also he fought the St. Valentine's Day Massacre on the 14th of February this same year against Jake LaMotta. He fought him for the 6th time, and he finally stopped him on the 6th attempt. But again, that's a long old break. From 1924 to 1951 for the welterweight division, an active division like the welterweight division. That's nearly 30 years, 27 years. But anyway, we're going to go to 1951. January the 27th, 1951, Eddie Thomas from Wales wins by KO in the 13th round against Pat Patrick from South Africa in Johannesburg, South Africa. Then we got October the 16th, 1951, Wally Thom from England wins on points over 15 rounds against Eddie Thomas from Wales in London, England. Then we got 1952, the year of the Helsinki Olympics. Yes, we got July the 24th, 1952. We got Cliff Curvis from Wales. Cliff Curvis from Wales wins by KO in the 9th round against Wally Thom from England in Liverpool, England. Then we got December the 8th, 1952. Gerald Dreyer from South Africa wins on points over 15 rounds against Cliff Curvis from Wales in Johannesburg, South Africa. Then we've got 1954, year of the West Germany winning the World Cup in West Germany. First time in their home country. No, I've got it wrong again. 1954 is the year when West Germany win the Soccer Cup in Switzerland. The only time it's in Switzerland. I always do that, but again, I'm digressing. Yeah, so the Soccer World Cup is won by Germany in Switzerland this year. January 15th, 1954, Barry Brown from New Zealand wins. Referee stops the fight in the 7th round against Gerald Dreyer from South Africa in Wellington, New Zealand. Then November the 24th, 1954, George Barnes from Australia wins by KO in the 11th round against Barry Brown from New Zealand in Sydney, Australia. Then we've got (1955), George Barnes from Australia wins on points against Atu Clotty from Ghana in Sydney, Australia. Then we've got 1956, year of the Melbourne Olympics. Terry Spinks wins the gold for England in the flyweight division. You might remember. Yeah, met that guy. And obviously 56, you had Dick McTaggart in there. Melbourne Olympics there. So, April the 14th, 1956, George Barnes wins. In the 13th round, referee stops the fight against Benny Nguyenhuisen. Benny Nguyenhuisen from South Africa. That was in Johannesburg, South Africa. Then we got August the 6th, 1956. Darby Brown from Australia wins on points over 15 rounds against George Barnes from Australia in Sydney, Australia. Then we got November the 12th, 1956. George Barnes from Australia wins on points over 15 rounds against Darby Brown from Australia in Sydney, Australia. Then we've got August the 12th, 1957. George Barnes from Australia wins on points over 15 rounds against Atu Clotty from Ghana in Sydney, Australia. We've got 1958. The year Brazil win the World Soccer Cup in Sweden. And that's the first time they won it. Thinking about, yeah, Uruguay won it in 50. That was the first time they won it, actually, yeah. So, May the 17th, 1958. Johnny van Rensburg from South Africa wins on points over 15 rounds against George Barnes from Australia in Salisbury, Rhodesia. So, Rhodesia was Zaire, I might be wrong. Renamed, might be wrong, totally wrong there, actually. Not too sure. So anyway, August the 18th, 1958, George Barnes from Australia wins. Referee stops the fight. 13th round against Johnny van Rensburg from South Africa, and that was in Sydney, Australia. Now, 1959, so August the 7th, 1959, George Barnes wins on points over 15 rounds against Billy Todd from Australia in Brisbane, Australia. December the 7th, 1959, George Barnes wins in the 6th round. Referee stops the fight against Billy Todd from Australia in Sydney, Australia. Then we've got 1960, the year Muhammad Ali in the Rome Olympics gets gold, and he also has two pro fights in that year. He wins gold in the light heavies, and he also starts his career beating Tony Hunsaker on the 29th of October 1960 this year, and his second fight right at the end of the year he beats Herb Selle. He stops him on the 27th of December 1960. But here we are on May the 9th, 1960, when Brian Curvis from Wales wins on points over 15 rounds against George Barnes from Australia in Swansea, Wales. So, yeah, we go May the 8th, 1961, Brian Curvis from Wales wins on points over 15 rounds against Wally Swift from England in Nottingham. Then October the 31st, 1961, Brian Curvis from Wales wins by KO in the 8th round against Mick Leahy from Era, Southern Ireland, and that was in London, England. Then 1962, year of the Chile World Cup, or the Chile Soccer World Cup, the only one held there thus far, and Brazil win again for the second year running. Santiago, Chile. So, February the 20th, 1962, Brian Curvis from Wales wins in the 5th round. Referee stops the fight against Tony Mancini from England. That was in London, England. Then 1963, the year Kennedy died. I think it was November the 22nd. Yeah, 1963. So, but anyway, so February the 12th, 1963, Brian Curvis wins from Wales, wins, referee stops the fight in the 10th round against Tony Smith from England, in London, England. Then 1964, year of the Tokyo Olympics, where Fraser comes in as substitute for Buster Mathis and wins gold against a wrestler in the final, German wrestler, ex-German wrestler, also a boxer, obviously. So July 28th, 1964, Brian Curvis from Wales wins by retirement in the 5th round against Johnny Cook from England in Porthcawl. Then we got 1965. This is the same year that Muhammad Ali, a new changed name from Cassius Clay, beat Sonny Liston for the second time, with Jersey Joe Walcott refereeing. Nat Fleischer, he was either the timekeeper or something like that along them lines. Ringside, a lot of kerfuffle going on between them all. Ali beats Liston second time on the 25th of May 1965, but here we are on November the 25th, 1965. Brian Curvis from Wales wins. Referee stops the fight in the 12th round against Sammy Muxspaden from England in Cardiff, Wales. 1967, so October the 16th, 1967, Johnny Cook from England wins and points. So for 15 rounds against Lennox Beckles from Guyana, I think it is there. Yeah, Guyana in Liverpool, England. 1968, year of the Mexico Olympics, where George Foreman wins gold. Yeah. And February 20th, 1968, Ralph Charles from England wins on points over 15 rounds against Johnny Cook from England in London, England. Then November 11th, 1969, Ralph Charles from England wins by KO in the 5th round against Chuck Henderson from England. That's in London, England. Lovely. So we have 1971, the year Muhammad Ali fought Joe Fraser. Joe Fraser the first time on the 8th of March this year. First time, one of 3 fights. And he fought him in 74 and 75. But this is December the 7th, 1971. Ralph Charles from England wins in the 8th round. Referee stops the fight against Bernie Terrell from England in London, England. Then we have 1973, same year Bruce Lee died, July that year. February the 12th, 1973, Clyde Gray wins, from Canada, wins on points over 15 rounds against Eddie Blay from Ghana. And that was in, Toronto, Canada, that was in. 1974, like I said, that's the second Ali fight with Fraser, 28th of January 1974. But here we are on, and Muhammad Ali wins that one, gets his revenge. February 18th, 1974 here, Clyde Gray from Canada wins in the 8th round retirement against Bunny Grant from Jamaica in Toronto, Canada. Now, 1975, this is the year of the Thriller in Manila, when Ali stops Fraser finally in the last fight. A bit like Robertson in the last of his 6 with LaMotta. He stops him in the last of the 3. Eddie Futch not letting him come out. for the fight, and good. He did a good job there. Great trainer Eddie Futch. He knew the game, knew what he was doing, and again that was on 1st of October 1975. But here we are on March the 3rd, 1975. Clyde Gray from Canada wins by KO in the 5th round against Marc Gervais from Canada in Calgary, Canada. Then December the 1st, 1975. Clyde Gray from Canada wins in the 8th round. Referee stops the fight against Lawrence Haffey from Canada. That was in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Again, home of one of the greatest fighters ever, Sam Langford, who won the coloured heavyweight title 5 times. Yeah, Johnson really avoided him. Dempsey did when he was half blind. Quite a long, I mean, too long to go into. He won the middleweight coloured world title, which I include. You know, you must include them because sometimes they're better fighters than the fighters who had the sort of original or whatever you call it title, what they called a legitimate one, whatever. But and he started at featherweight. You know, he fought Joe Gans at lightweight. He would have won the title at lightweight as well, but something due to the weight it was that wasn't right. He was told a certain weight to weigh in, and he weighed in, and they said it would be right, and it wasn't for the title. So I bet he won, and yeah, didn't get the title. And also at welterweight, he fought Barbados Joe Walcott for the world title, and got a draw. But then as he went up, they wouldn't let him fight for what they called the original legitimate title, whatever you want to call that. Everyone knows, and he ended up fighting for the coloured middleweight title, winning it once, and the heavyweight title 5 times. So amazing for a guy who started at featherweight. He was knocking out heavyweights. But anyway, I'm digressing. This also was the year 1975. Yeah, I've already done that. So March 3rd, 1975, Clyde Gray from Canada wins by KO in the 5th round against Marc Gervais, Canada, Calgary, Canada. Then December the 1st, 1975, Clyde Gray from Canada wins in the 8th round. Referee stops the fight against Lawrence Haffey from Canada in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I've just done that one. 1976 now. So November 23rd, 1976, year of the 2nd Montreal Olympics, where Sugar Ray Leonard wins gold, beating Aldama, the Cuban, in the final, and also Don Quarry, the track and field 2 distance events. I think it was 100 and 200, might be wrong, but he got silver and gold. And December 9th, 1977. November 23rd, 1976. Let's go for that year. Clyde Gray from Canada wins. Referee stops the fight in the 5th round against Kevin Odas from Nigeria in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And then December 9th, 1977, Clyde Gray from Canada wins some points over 15 rounds against Fernand Lewis from Guyana in Port of Spain, Trinidad. Now, 1978, this is the year Argentina won the World Soccer Cup in Argentina. But we're on August the 19th, 1978. Clyde Gray from Canada wins. Referee stops the fight in the 8th round against Sakaria V from Fiji. And that was in Suva, Fiji. And then December the 15th, 1978, Clyde Gray from Canada wins by KO in the 9th round against Sakaria V from Fiji in Lutoka, Fiji. Then August the 28th, 1979, Chris Clark from Canada wins. Referee stops the fight in the 10th round due to a cut against Clyde Gray from Canada in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Then November the 13th, 1979, Clyde Gray from Canada wins in the 10th round. Referee stops the fight against Chris Clark from Canada in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada again. So, yeah, March the 3rd, 1981, Colin Jones from England wins in the 9th round. Referee stops the fight against Mark Harris from Guyana in London, England. And then April the 28th, 1981, Colin Jones from Wales. Well, actually, yeah, I thought he was from Wales. So this is England there, Wales there. Colin Jones from Wales. Unless he changed, but I'm sure he's from Wales the whole time. Colin Jones from Wales wins. Referee stops the fight in the 9th round against Kirkland Lang from England. In London, England. Talented Kirkland Lang there. Remember that fight? Or both of his fights with him. One for the British. Then 1982, year of the Spain Soccer World Cup that Italy win. September the 14th, 1982, Colin Jones from Wales wins by KO in the 2nd round against Sakari V in Fiji, from Fiji in Wembley, England. Then 1984, year of the Los Angeles Olympics. Again, 9 golds they got, America, and a silver and a bronze. The silver and the bronze was, the silver was Virgil Hill, and the bronze, believe it or not, was Evander Holyfield, who got disqualified. You didn't have the Russians and the Cubans in this year. Like I say, it stopped Filio Stevens getting that 4 simultaneous Olympics. But yeah, and also they had a lot in there. Jerry Page won a gold. Steve McCory won a gold. Was it Paul John Gonzalez? One of them won a gold. Then you had Henry Tillman, who beat Tyson in the amateurs, but lost him in the pros. He won a gold. And also Terrell Briggs, the same deal. I think he beat Tyson twice actually in the amateurs, but he at least beat him once and lost him in the pros also. He got a gold. Pernell Whitaker, Meldred Taylor, Frank Tate. A really good slew of fighters winning golds there. One of the best years. 1928 was a good year for the Olympics in Amsterdam for USA also, with Harry Wiley, the trainer. But I'm digressing. So, back to September the 14th, 1982, Colin Jones from Wales wins by KO against Sakari V from Fiji in Wembley, England. And then, I've already done that, right. October the 10th, 1984, Sylvester Mitty from England wins. Referee stops the fight in the 11th round fight against Fighting Romanos from Nigeria in London, England. Then 1985, April the 13th, 1985, Sylvester Mitty from England wins on points over 12 rounds against Martin McGough from England. That was in Darlington, England. September the 18th, 1985, Sylvester Mitty from England wins on points over 12 rounds against Kostas Petru from England. Not too sure of that, but that was in London, England. Then November the 27th, 1985, Lloyd Hunnigan from England wins. Referee stops the fight in the 8th round against Sylvester Mitty from England in London, England. In April the 6th, 1987, Brian Jansen from Australia. Brian Jensen from Australia wins on points over 12 rounds against Judas Clotty from England. I'm not too sure if he's from England as well. That was in Brisbane, Australia, unless they took up residence maybe and trained there. Too sure about that one. I thought he was more African. I might be wrong. So, August the 28th, 1987, Wilf Gentzen from Australia wins on points over 12 rounds against Brian Jensen from Australia in Melbourne, Australia. Then you got the 1988 year of the Seoul Olympics. Roy Jones gets silver for the worst decision I've seen ever against a Korean with 5 judges, 3-2. And a lot of controversy where the Koreans were giving prizes to the judges, all sorts. Definitely the worst decision I've seen, I think. And obviously had Henrik and Wendy in there. He got his dole stopped while he was coming up to Olympics, I think, or might have been in it, but I'm not sure. But anyway, so August the 28th. April the 19th, 1988, Gary Jacobs from Scotland, cracking southpaw he was, wins on points over 12 rounds against Wilf Gentzen from Australia in Glasgow, Scotland, home ground for Gary Jacobs. He fought Pernell Whitaker later on, cracking fighter. Yeah, so that's the end of the welterweight commonwealth boxing title history.